Welcome to Face to Face. This is a show about change and about what's next. It's a show that wants to ask questions, peel back the layers of our average everyday experience, and go beyond scratching the surface. We interview amazing people with incredible ideas and stories who have done wild, weird, and wonderful things. Remember that imagination shared creates collaboration, and collaboration creates community, and community inspires social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face to Face. My interview today is with a singer-songwriter, musician, social justice advocate, a guy by the name of Jacob Moon. I think you're going to really enjoy the interview. We talk a lot about music. We talk about something called live looping that I'm still not sure exactly what it is, but Jacob breaks it down and he talks about the creative process and about how that allowed him to get noticed by Rush and by other artists. Ron Sexsmith has some great things to say about Jacob's music and his passion and his abilities. Jacob talks about why the hands are jokers. I love this notion about practice over the idea of giving. You're going to have to check out his rooftop rendition of Subdivisions. It's online. It's on YouTube, jacobmoon.com. Please don't miss this interview. He's going to be performing at an event in Toronto, May the 12th, with a woman by the name of Mama Maggie, often referred to as the Mother Teresa of Cairo. Check us out online. Check him out, I should say, online. Again, stay tuned for more with Jacob Moon. And don't forget to check out my site, davidpecklive.com, for more information about my podcasting there. Jacob Moon, coming at you. Well, welcome to Face to Face. We're joined by, once again, one more very special guest. Jacob Moon is here today to talk about, I guess, a whole lot of things, and we're going to find out what some of those things are. Jacob, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be with you, David.
So, who the heck are you? Is probably the best question, but that we've got to ask right out of the gate. But I'm going to quote somebody here. Ron Sexsmith, who's somebody who I've followed for years musically, said, quote, "Jacob Moon is an exceedingly gifted and watchable performer, seems completely at home on stage." And Danny Miranda, who's the bassist for Queen, concurs, quote, "Tremendous command of the instrument, amazing voice. I can honestly say that I am overwhelmed by his music," close quote. Wow, those are amazing quotes about who you are and who you are on stage, I guess. And I'm hoping today we can find out a little bit more about who you are off stage as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, all I'll say about those quotes is, $5 is $5. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's just is that all it costs you? It's all it costs, man. Listen, it's just throw a $5 Ron's away and say whatever you want.
How do you get the bassist for Queen to come out to see your show?
No, that was ridiculous. That was just him finding me online, and he basically was like emailing me from. He was actually taking a job with Meatloaf at the time, and he was on tour on the tour bus with Meatloaf. He's like, "We're listening to your music right now. We love it. Way to go! Keep up the good work." And I'm like, "What?" That was pretty freaky.
As I've always said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So nicely done.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Meatloaf. There's a word you don't hear very often, or music you don't hear very often anymore.
Yeah, well, Meatloaf. He's classic though. He's earned his place in the rock canon for sure.
I remember Pine Point Arena wanting to hold hands with a young woman I was hoping to maybe date while we were skating around the rink in Rexdale, Ontario. The arena's still there. Things have certainly changed, and Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, is playing through the crummy speakers.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got a Meatloaf story, right?
Oh, sure. But I remember roller skating very well.
Yeah.
I grew up in Kitchener-Waterloo, and there was a place called Super Skate 7, and that was what we were allowed to do. I went to a church, and they were, kind of concerned about us, so they made sure that we were always doing wholesome things on the weekend. So,
right.
Roller skating was okay.
Yes.
And but there was always one guy who owned his own roller skates. Do you remember this guy? And he would take every opportunity to just showboat.
Oh yeah, totally.
Crossover.
Yeah.
He's always wearing tight pants. And tight shirt.
Ponytail and a Dead Kennedys T-shirt.
Yeah. And he's just always even in the slow songs, he's zipping in and out of it. Yeah, those are good times.
On one hand, you wanted to be that guy, and then on the other hand, you wanted to take him out back of the ring.
Stick out a leg. By, yeah.
That's funny. Now, is that where you met your wife at a roller skating?
No.
Oh, okay.
Very romantic beginnings, but it was actually less romantic. She came to one of my shows, and she signed up on the mailing list, and we talked afterwards. And it was the only time I abused the privilege. I followed up with her via email the next day and said, "Hey, let's keep talking." And we've been talking.
Cool. So clearly, music is pretty much connected to everything for you, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I mean, it has been for a long time. I mean, it probably started when I went to my first concert back when I was a little kid. I went to a Burton Cummings concert in Kitchener, and they just opened the Center in the Square, and I went to see him play there, and it was pretty unbelievable. And then I thought, well, I'm going to see Canadian artists. I went to see Bryan Adams, and before he was famous, and something about just the male singer-songwriter kind of made an impression on me. And I mean, in some ways, I wish Dylan had come to town in those days,
Sure.
because it would have been even more of an interesting. My music might have gone a different way or something. But I have an interest in pop music and folk music, gospel music, jazz, blues. I'm a pretty eclectic listener, and even though what I do is kind of in the wheelhouse of roots singer-songwriter, I think there's a lot of those other influences.
So help me out here, and I want to talk about some of the things that you've sort of broken some ground on. This whole idea of live looping, and you give clinics, and by the way, folks, check out Jacob's website, jacobmoon.com. To see where he's going to be. He's going to be in Ontario, really, I think, coming up soon. Hamilton, Alberta, for those of you who have some air miles. Anyway, performer, songwriter, and singer. I mean, do they all go hand in hand, or are you more of one than the other?
For me, they all go hand in hand for sure. Yeah, I know a lot of guys who are just songwriters or they're just performers, but yeah, I definitely am integrated completely. I mean, I'm always trying to grow as a songwriter. I'm trying to grow as a guitar player. Like a lot of my heroes are really good guitar players, so I'm always feeling the pressure to grow as a guitar player and get better and try to do my heroes proud. Mm-hmm. and as a singer, I just feel like there's still so much to learn there. So. And as a songwriter, I mean, gosh, you could just never stop learning about that. And so it's the thing about music. I mean, even people who are old, people like Jim Hall, or people who've just been doing it forever. They say that the more you approach perfection in music, the more that it kind of moves away from you. And it continually evades your grasp. So there's something about that I'm attracted to, and I like the idea of lifelong learning and growing.
Could you live? Could you live without the stage, Jacob? Or do you need to
No, I think I need the stage for a few reasons. I mean, some people need it for the adulation or the attention and stuff. It's kind of like a place for me to get down to work and to put my ideas to the test and see what their worth is in the real world, and to offer them up to people and see what the feedback is, and to practice them, to get better at them, to improve. I mean, Jay Leno, who was a well-known comic and talk show host, he was famous for never spending any of the money from The Tonight Show. He only spent the money that he earned from playing stand-up gigs, and he played a lot of them during his tenure as Tonight Show host. He would go out every weekend, and every night that he was on hiatus, he was out touring. And somebody asked him why, and he said, "Well, if you want to be a prize fighter, you have to take a lot of fights." And it was his way of staying sharp. He just felt like people would notice if he took the weekend off. And so that's definitely how I feel about music and about me in music. Like, some guys are just preternaturally talented, and you can't stop them. They're just going to be great every time. I don't relate to those people. I I definitely have to put the time in to developing as a player, and I have to feel the confidence that I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I can use that as a jumping off point to improvise in a million different directions. So,
what would you be doing if you weren't a singer-songwriter, performer, musician? Any ideas?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I have a strong bent for justice and for seeing the marginalized restored and victimized, brought to health and systems changed, rights wronged. I have a strong kind of bent that way in me, and so I could see myself either being a spokesman, or I already am a spokesman for organizations like Compassion and International Justice Mission right here in Canada. But yeah, just being, I'm doing more and more of that kind of work, and I'm enjoying it. So it's a different spin. I am able to weave my music into it. Mm-hmm. So it's a good marriage for the two skill sets. I mean, I'm good at kind of digesting facts and stories and, sharing them and in a way that people will respond to. And so that's something I'm trying to work with. I mean, there's all kinds of things I like to do. It's just whether I'd be any good at them, So sure. Right. So I'm trying to stay within stuff that I think would be a good fit for me.
I want to come back to that whole social justice edge. I know you've got a couple of gigs coming up. One with the Stevens Children Foundation as well, with Mama Maggie, sometimes called the Mother Teresa of Cairo. She's coming, and you're going to be playing with them in May. I want to get back to that whole social justice edge, because really that's kind of my thing. That's kind of where I'm at, and as most of my listeners know, it's all about the splash and ripple effect for me. But I'm fascinated by this, by Rush. So not only are you a huge fan of Rush, but am I right to understand they invited you to Hall of Fame, Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame Gala to perform one of their sort of classics?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, tell me a bit about this. I have a friend who's like completely nuts about Rush, and personally, I never got into them, and I think as a kid, as a young teenager, I was more of a Def Leppard fan, actually. So
nice.
The power chord, right?
Yeah, but it's a short walk from Def Leppard to Rush, I think.
Oh, is that right, eh?
I think so. Yeah.
That's interesting. I think I just heard a disturbance in the forest. All the Rush fans just went, "Oh, come on, really?"
Yeah. Well, that's true. Now, it would be not necessarily true that Rush would be Def Leppard fans, but I don't think it's too far off for you to find at least one record that you could dig. And I think Rush is one of those bands every teenager in Canada, usually the male persuasion, but surprisingly, the number of females have been fans of this band.
Well,
I'm one of them too.
How could you not have not known something about music and not been sort of introduced to what is it, 2112? Was that the album?
Yeah, that was kind of their seminal recording in the 70s.
Temples of Syrinx, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I have incredible, vivid memories of a friend of mine playing that for me. I was too young to sort of even begin to appreciate what they were trying to do, but I remember being quite taken by not only the music, but the lyrics and by the narrative of it, and also the artwork and the cover and just the, I don't know, the intention or the commitment, maybe. Wow, this isn't just a rock band. These guys are about something else and something other. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, that's right. And I think that's kudos to the drummer, Neil. Peart, he was a real, very literary guy. He still is. Reads a lot, and when you read a lot, it kind of comes out in your writing.
And he's was he the lyricist for Rush?
Yep, he was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about this performance where you worked for the band.
Okay, well, I mean, what happened was I went to see them. My brother-in-law is a famous guy. He's the world's fastest oyster shucker.
Wow.
And he runs a Toronto restaurant, or did for a long time, called Starfish.
Okay.
And they used to come in all the time and hang out and bring their own wine and do the whole thing. And he'd get chatting with them, and they'd say, "Yeah, well, we're playing a show in Toronto, and would you come and cater it and shuck oysters for us backstage?" And he's like, "Yeah, but can I bring my brother-in-law because he's a big fan?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So he brought me along. I got to see the show front row. I went backstage. I brought some oysters. and then I thought that's where it would end. But I actually heard them play Subdivisions that night, and I came home and started fooling around with it on the guitar, and I was like, how could I maybe play this? And it was complicated, so it took me a long time to figure out how to pull it all together. It took me maybe about a year and a half or so before I tried playing it on stage, because there was a lot of choreography, a lot of looping, and using a handheld tape recorder and 2 guitars, one on a stand, one around my neck, and it was just a lot to do, and a little weird tuning. So so I had to really get my act together on that one. But I'm glad I did, because I made this video that ended up getting seen by a whole bunch of Rush fans, and eventually by the band themselves. And Getty sent me an email saying, "Hey, great job. You know, the guys have all heard the song. Way to go. It's awesome." And so I thought, well, that's great. That's probably where it's going to end, you know. And then their management company called me up out of the blue a few months later, which, you know, I just assumed that was them calling to sue me, you know, for using
right.
the song.
Yeah, cease and desist.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. We love your song, Jacob, but get it the heck off the airwaves.
That's exactly right. But they didn't go all Prince on me. They were pretty cool about it. They basically just said, "Hey, we would love it if you would come and perform that version of Subdivisions at the gala that's being held." It wasn't Rush that was holding it. It was the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame. So really, Rush didn't have a say in the matter, but they did express their preferences, and they said, "Okay, these are some people that we would like to have involved. If you could, that'd be great."
Cool.
And so I got to kind of audition to do it at the press conference that they held at the theater, Toronto Centre for the Arts, and then I won them over, and the people who were organizing the event said, "Yeah, okay, I think we can." We never heard of this guy, but sure, let's put him in.
Right.
So it was a bit of a risk.
A little risk, yeah.
But you know what? The performance went great, and it kind of became a story, you know, and hopefully an encouraging story for independent musicians out there who are who are trying to play for their heroes, you know, or whatever, trying to get more exposure. It's like this, you know, sometimes if you do, and I would say if you do it for the love, like it was really started, like I wouldn't have played the song for a year and a half,
right,
for any other reason than love, right? Like it's just, I would have no way of knowing it would ever do this, or they would ever have this result. So I've tried to remember that in the time that's elapsed since then. I mean, I haven't really had anything that's been as big of a hit as that.
Okay.
As far as videos go, but everything I've done since then has been for the love of it, and so I can only do that. You know, people say, "Why don't you cover Beyonce or Taylor Swift or something?" Then you get all those fans coming to your website. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I would, but I don't know. I feel like they could tell my heart isn't in it or something. So I got to do stuff that I love, and that was an example of that paying off.
So 471,232 hits of you performing it live on the roof so far. Yeah. Are you becoming rich beyond your wildest dreams as a result of all the YouTube money that you're making now?
Oh, yeah, YouTube money. It's you can earn dozens of dollars.
That's right.
It's fantastic.
And then purchase more of those reviews from famous 80s rock musicians.
Yes, well, exactly.
You're all set.
100%.
So tell me, just before we move on, because this is awesome. I love what you've done here. But on the rooftop, was this locally? Was it in Toronto, Hamilton? Where?
Hamilton, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we basically just did it and asked for forgiveness afterwards.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, which is how you should do all rooftop concerts.
Of course.
I never asked for permission.
I know a few have happened over the years, and probably my favorite is U2 and Where the Streets Have No Name. Mm-hmm. Just because of probably the timing more than anything for my life. It was right around Rattle and Hum. It was probably late 80s, I think.
88, somewhere around there.
Do you remember that?
I do.
That was a huge moment, right?
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
Unbelievable. Absolutely. I couldn't believe the crowd, and you wonder at the end of the video, the police are there sort of pushing them off, and I'm sure a little fancy editing and fancy directing, but still it clearly they just went ahead and did it. And, it's awesome. I love it.
That was pretty fantastic.
Well, it'd be interesting to know what it would have done today, you know, social media wise. How it would have played out, because everybody would have found out about it, right?
Pretty much.
And still there was this massive crowd. That's a cool story, man. I don't know. I love the risk on your part. I love your audacity, to take such a classic piece and to play with it. Tell me, so does this notion, and I don't even know what it is, but this live looping that you're kind of known for, that you do clinics on and you teach on, is that connected to what you did with subdivisions?
Yes,
and then
it is.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, in order to play a song with that many parts and that many layers, I mean, it's still a huge reduction of the song. It's almost like playing on the piano or something, But in order to play something pianistically on the guitar, you either have to have like extreme technical ability, or you have to use technology to your advantage. And in my case, I used technology to my advantage. It did take a certain amount of technical finesse to pull that off, for sure, guitaristically, but looping is where you basically record what you're playing live.
Jacob, did you just use the word guitaristically?
Guitaristically, that's the thing. I didn't make that up, man. I've seen that in print.
That's awesome.
I mean, usually in Guitar Player magazine, full disclosure, but
that's cool. I background in philosophy. I say to my kids often, we need to come up with a new word today. Like, let's design a new word. And I had a prof who said at least once a month you should create a new word. And I've never heard guitaristically before, but I think I'm going to try to use it sometime later this week.
Yeah, it's a great Scrabble word, too.
I could see a fist fight developing over that word, actually. No, I read it last night in Guitar Player magazine. Anyway, sorry, man, that was awesome.
So if you're playing 9-tile Scrabble, you go.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Somebody puts guitar down. You put istically at the end. It's fine.
Yeah. Those house like rules kill you points. Every time.
Yeah. But no, I mean, you basically layer sound on sound using a pedal.
Okay.
You have to kind of like step on the pedal right when you want to start the phrase and right when you want to end the phrase. And if you get it wrong by a millisecond, everyone knows you screwed it up. And so you have to really, it's a certain amount of precision that goes into that. And then, so you can essentially loop the rhythm guitar and then bring in the lead guitar, by playing it, by essentially performing it, and not having to worry about carrying the rhythm guitar piece along with you, which if you play solo, that's always kind of a bugbear of playing solos, that you're always chained to the role of rhythm guitar, and it's difficult to introduce melodic elements unless you go real chord melody style, or you start picking finger style or whatever, and I can do those things, but it was just a nice idea to sling the guitar that I was playing over my shoulder and walk up to a guitar that was on a stand that made a different sound and play a lead guitar solo on that, and then transition back to the acoustic guitar, and and then use the dictaphone, use the stomp pedal where I'm able to stomp on a piece of wood like Stomp and Tom did, and it makes kind of like a kick drum sound. So I'm trying to bring all the elements of the band, the bass, the guitar, the drums, the lead guitar, and then sing the vocals, and make it so that you don't miss the band so much. And that's kind of that way I don't have to hire a band, frankly.
So really what you're saying
money.
is this has nothing to do with art or creativity or an homage to Rush. This is really about, you just don't have to hire a band.
Yeah, you don't have to put up with drummers.
One ego is a lot easier to manage, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So Jacob, and I mean this with all sincerity, this question, I mean a little tongue-in-cheek, I suppose, but are you more talented than I am or gifted than I am with a guitar? Like, I've always been fascinated by creativity, by, why I'm a magician. I play with card tricks and coin tricks and so on, and have for, 40 years I've been doing this and have a deep love and passion for it. But I also know how much time and effort and practice goes into it, and a day doesn't pass where I'm not rolling a coin through my fingers, and I don't even perform for people anymore on stage, and you are. So I don't know. I guess the question I'm asking you is kind of, that giftedness versus that level of commitment question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I see that all the time. I see people that I think are just crazy gifted and talented, and then I dig a little deeper and I find out how much they practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I go, okay, well, that's interesting. I mean, people who know what good music is and how they want their music to sound, they know that in order to get it there, they better be telling their fingers what to do, because their hands are jokers, right? Like they're constantly letting us down, and the brain needs to forge ironclad connections to synapses in our hands, and planning in the brain for the next part, the next thing you're going to do, so that you can do it with ease, and it doesn't look like you're really burning a lot of calories when doing it. So the people who really make it look easy, they make it look easy because they practice the heck out of it. Like when you see Prince play the halftime show, and it looks like, it's a walk in the park for him, and you know that that all of that would have needed to be rehearsed to the nth degree in order to look that way. It reminds you to practice.
I remember a magician I worked with many, many years ago, and I'm sure this has been said by many, but the whole idea of a magician that walks out on stage is that when they reach out and pluck a coin out of the air, what you want to communicate to your audience is, I do this all the time.
Yeah.
Right? I just walk around on the street and pluck coins out of the air. I mean, that's the whole idea of what you're, and in a sense, there's hundreds of hours of practice that's already gone behind that. Rehearsal, thought, strategy almost, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's for me, I would like to put more hours of practice in, and that's partly why I perform as much as I do. I mean, sometimes the phone rings for me to come and perform, but not as often as I want to be performing, and so I end up booking myself into places and taking a risk. Like I booked myself into the Aeolian Hall on the weekend in London, because I wanted to be playing on that whole weekend, and so I took the risk. If people show up, then I make money. If they don't, then I don't.
Was that this past weekend?
Yeah.
And how'd it go?
It went great. The place was full, and it was awesome. So
good for you, man. That's amazing. Nice.
You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, of course.
That was when the weather hit, right? When we got snow again in April.
Yeah.
So I thought I was going to lose out that night, but it actually turned out to be a wonderful evening. And so, yeah.
That's amazing. So one more question about the creativity practice thing, because I love that sort of interconnectedness of it all, because I think it is a little bit of both, but at the same time, I honestly believe, watching my kids grow up and even in my own life, I think you can kind of draw out some of that talent, if that makes sense. I think
it does. It does. Well, they go hand in hand, though. People say, like, what if I just practiced a lot? Would I become great? Well, you wouldn't practice a lot if you didn't have the kernel of talent you need to do it. People always say, how do you get started in music? And I always tell them, like, by not being able to stop. Like,
it's great.
That's your clue.
Yeah, I remember reading a book called For People Who Can't Not Write. And it was this woman who was trying to say, here's how to become a better writer. And one of the things is you just got to write.
Yeah.
You just got to pick up the instruments and go.
And you don't have to be told to write if you're a writer,
Right.
Yes. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because, we put this on our kids. Sometimes we think, well, raising kids, and maybe they have talent. Maybe if we just gave them a teacher and then a mandate to practice constantly, they would do what but they're not going to do it unless it comes from within. It's extrinsic versus intrinsic.
Yeah. So where does something, though, like live looping come into play? I mean, is that just getting to a point in your life where you've practiced enough, you've put the hours in to say, you know what, now I want to step outside of the framework, or I want to challenge the framework, or I'm actually going to take a risk on stage tonight that I haven't taken before? Or is it just an honest accident? I'm not saying that it wasn't your case, but this, it sounds like you're kind of breaking ground here a little bit, and the risks and and what you're exploring essentially is turning out to be quite remarkable.
Yeah, it is. This, when I started doing it, there wasn't almost anyone doing it, and so now there are definitely. If you go to a show with a young act or whatever, you'll see more and more people doing it, but it's just another pedal. It's just what you do with it. What's your creative expression on it? Right. Everybody's got a distortion pedal too, but everybody uses it differently. So for me, it's an expression of creativity. It's realizing my arranging ambitions for the song.
Interesting.
because I like these parts and I don't like to play a song and not make reference to these parts that are in my head.
Right.
Or if I'm covering a song, to be able to sneak in the iconic melodic line in there, which usually requires another set of hands. Well, if you can loop it accurately, then you can execute it, both parts, and more. You can, multiple. You can really get into juggling a lot of balls, and that's where it gets into a bit of a choreography exercise and trying to make sure that you tap at the right time and you know where you are in the looping, and you kind of have to kind of keep a lot of things going in your head. A lot of multitasking is happening. And so that's really good, stimulating for the brain too, and I think it's been good for me creatively, and there's so much more that I could do. And I see people who have pushed the envelope of this craft to the nth degree. I get, I'll get an invitation to attend the one-man band festival in Montreal, and if you go to that thing, there's people who are doing it without pedals. They've rigged up mechanical devices that will achieve the same sort of thing of multiplying your limbs and making it so that you can execute lots of different things at once. So there's lots to learn still, but really ultimately I always tell people it's about serving the song first and foremost, and not about showing off what kind of a great live looper you are. You want to make sure that you're giving people the song, number one. Yeah.
Just before we move into your advocacy, social justice angle to what it is you do, tell me about your what makes you. It's going to sound a little corny, but what makes you a better songwriter? Tell me about your family. Tell me about your support mechanism around you. What are some of the things you do to recharge, to go, because I don't know, maybe you're such a pro that you go, you know what, I'm going to write a new song today, and I'm going to, at 10 o'clock, I'm going to hang out and 3 hours, and I'm not leaving the studio till I have at least the basis of a new song. Maybe it is like that, but yeah, just kind of interested about it. I'm always interested about that support community and the mechanisms people have around them, and sometimes don't have around them, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I think ultimately you can only make music out of your life, and your life really is comprised of the relationships and the social glue and the life lessons and the epiphanies that you have either by yourself or in the presence of other people. And my songs are born out of observations, out of personal stories about other people's personal stories, and sort of taking those on and embodying them in song. And so things that make me a better songwriter, I think if I can be a better noticer, a better observer,
a poet,
just really just keep the antenna up and be aware, and just carry the moleskin and carry the and make notes and make sure that you're constantly on the radar with everything that's happening, so I think that's the main thing, is just making sure that you listen and foster some kind of an interior life, so that you can do that. I think the exterior life of having to be a performer and having to be in the public eye and having to be constantly on social media and everything else is kind of runs cross purposes to what you need to be focused on when you're a songwriter. And so you do have to remove yourself from those activities, so that you can do this work. And so there's a lot, lots of examples of people, everybody from recently Sarah Slean going out to a cabin somewhere and disappearing for 6 months and writing a whole new album. If you go back to like the band, moving into a house and basically just setting up their recording equipment and just writing and making a record together quite apart from urban life and from their own families and everything else, and just say, because you're right, family is an inspiration, but ultimately they also are a hindrance to getting anything done musically. So you do have to actually remove yourself from the family, unfortunately, write about that.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So you're talking about a space of a sort. I love this idea of listening as well. It's a theme that just continues to come up in my own teaching and work, and especially working internationally. And I do a lot of work. I think, as you and I have chatted offline, about Cambodia and so on, and you know, the I don't know. I think you know, being cross-culturally aware, being a better parent, being a better teacher, I think requires this keen ability to listen. And in truth, I'm not great at it, and getting better, I hope, all the time. But we tend to be pretty self-absorbed, it seems to me, for more often than not. And this idea of listening includes others, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That seems to go against the grain, which is kind of weird. So tell me why you've been listening to other parts of the world. It sounds like you've got this passion and this heart for social justice. You're working with a few different agencies and organizations. I mean, does this come out of something that you grew up with, or is this something you've been introduced to along the way? Was it a trip? Was it a book you read, etc.?
Yeah, I think it goes right back to being in a Presbyterian church as a kid, where they brought refugees over, or they were constantly working on behalf of the poor and marginalized, and just seeing that faith in action at a young age. You know, I never forgot that. And in my own family, I don't know how much, we didn't really do much that way. But you pick it up and you kind of look around you and you go, oh, you see a movie or you hear a song. You know, in the 80s, it was pretty hard to escape the twinning of music and advocacy for things like famine and for relief. Music and relief were kind of together, and they did a lot together to raise funds and raise awareness. And
Bob Geldof and company.
Yeah, and lots of people entered the field, you know, and sort of became passionate about expanding their borders and getting their passport and going and seeing what's going on out there and seeing if there's a way that they could be part of the solution. You know? And so that's been a conversation that's continued to fascinate me as well. And in the travels that I've done with compassion to places like Haiti and the Dominican Republic and El Salvador, I've gotten pretty close up with what the experience is for a child growing up in poverty in those countries. And it motivates me more than ever to come back here and to do what I can to tell those stories. And maybe there'll be a young person out there for whom I will be their first exposure to this story. And I always tell about the kids like Tony from Dominican Republic, who's the head of IT at the office, but was once a sponsor child, you know, and his story of how he's basically destined to become a drug dealer, and that was the only way he was ever going to escape poverty, according to everything that he saw. You know, when I looked around as a teenager, I saw people who were making their living, modest as it was, from music, and I got the idea that I could do this too. I could be a musician. So who are these kids seeing around them that would give them the idea they could escape poverty and be something other than a criminal? And so so Tony is a great example of someone who's not just escaped poverty, but who's actually helping others through telling his own story. And so he's traveled across the country with Michael W. Smith, giving his testimony, and through that, hundreds of kids have been sponsored. And so the ripple effect is something I keep seeing, of just when you make an investment in a life on the other side of the world, it's not just a one-to-one investment. It's if it's handled properly, and in the case of compassion, you know, I definitely did my research to figure out if they do handle it properly, and if they do actually do what they say they're going to do. And so after finding out that was the case, you know, firsthand, and from seeing this story after story of these kids that have not just transcended their beginnings, but have made new beginnings for their fellow countrymen. They haven't fled to the land of milk and honey to find their fortune. They've stayed in country, and they've wanted to first and foremost give back to the next generation.
Why would you say you're concerned personally? And I'm always interested to hear this from individuals like yourself who are, doing things for others in whatever way, shape, or form that is. Mm-hmm. Why there and not here?
Yeah, I mean, I think here is definitely important too, for sure. But sometimes you have to kind of remove yourself from what's familiar, disorient yourself completely, and then tune back into an individual who there's some part of them that is both familiar because you can see yourself in them. You can see, like, what if that was me? What if that was my story? How would I react? And it's engaging in that sense, because you're hooked now, because you're trying to figure out how the story is going to end or should end,
right,
if that was you. And it's also, if you're a person of faith, of belief, then you are seeing the face of Christ through. And in this case, that's what I'm seeing, is I'm seeing, as he promised, that, wherever you find someone who is suffering, and if you help them, you are helping me in that instance. Whatever you've done to the least of these, you've done to me. And so there's a spiritual connection that happens.
So your faith is very much a part of why you do what you do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's inextricably linked for me. If I was just a materialist or just a scientist or whatever, or was into scientism or whatever, I would maybe, or a Darwinist or whatever, I would just think, well, those people just need to figure it out, and if they don't, then the nature has sorted them out, because they're not the fittest.
Right.
And so, but people forget all the time that it's like the the reason, whether you're doing it for religious reasons or not, if you're responding to someone because of some other reason than just straight up logical or pragmatic reasons, then you're really tapping into something, whether you're aware of it or not, that is deeper than the intellect. It's deeper than the brain. It goes right into the soul, and it reveals the presence and the existence of a soul, which should itself be revelatory, right? But when that awakens in us as people, is compassion, is all the virtues that aren't just necessary for survival of the species, and that explains it, but transcend that and exists even where it's not necessary, and it's part of the glorious outpouring of love and of goodness that we see in the world. We see obviously examples of the opposite as well, but
yeah, for sure.
What I get excited about is where, how can I work alongside with good people who are doing good work for the right reasons, and that's its own reward in a lot of ways, and there's a feedback loop that happens when you get into that's addictive, and you just want to become more and more involved in it in a good way, So.
Well, and I think it so connects back to what you said earlier about the whole idea of listening, and it's huge. It really is, and I think we can all listen a little better, and I think we can all dig in a little better as well. We gotta wrap it up, Jacob. I can't believe it, and I can't believe we're ending kind of on a somber note here in a way, and yet I hope an affirming kind of inspirational one as well. So Jacob Moon, jacobmoon.com. As it sounds, check out his latest music. You've got tour dates and a bio, and make sure you check out Subdivisions. It's online, and become the 471,233rd listener, I think, might be appropriate. Jacob, hey, have you got anything big? So we're going to talk a little bit offline and on the bio probably about what's next for you, but new album coming, big dates coming up, other than the Mamba Maggie event, of course, on May the 12th. Yeah.
I'll be heading out on tour to Alberta.
Very good.
To play some dates out there, and then I've got a bunch of dates in Ontario that people can check out on the website. It's always unfolding, always changing, always adding more stuff. But yeah, I'm kind of in a space where I'm trying to leave some room so I can create some new stuff.
Nice. Well, listen, thanks a lot for your time today, and I wish you well on your next project.
Thank you so much, David.